This is TWiT.
Is that an iPhone in your hand? Wait a second. Is that an Apple Watch on your wrist? And do I see an iPad sitting there on the table? Oh my goodness. You are the perfect person to be watching iOS Today, the show where Rosemary Orchard and I, Micah Sargent, talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePod OS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we show you how to make the most of those gadgets. Just head to twit.tv/iOS to check it out.
The FBI purchased Pegasus. You know, that's the NSO Group's infamous smartphone spyware platform. They said it was for, quote, research and development purposes, unquote. Last week,
what are they developing, I wonder?
Last week, the New York Times ran a story with the headline, "Internal Documents Show How Close the FBI Came to Deploying Spyware." Now, I have a little bit different take on this, but we'll get to that in a second. The New York Times reported that last December, FBI Director Christopher Wray told Congress, this is a closed-door testimony, that the Bureau as in, Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Bureau purchased the infamous Pegasus phone hacking tool for research and development purposes. Well, it turns out that FOIA, the U.S. Freedom of Information Act, can be quite handy for figuring out things that really happened. Here's how the Times explained what they found. They wrote, during a closed-door session with lawmakers last December, Christopher A. Wray, spelled W-R-A-Y, the director of the FBI, was asked whether the Bureau had ever purchased and used Pegasus. Directly asked. The hacking tool, writes the Times, that penetrates mobile phones and extracts their contents. Mr. Wray acknowledged that the FBI had bought a license for Pegasus, but only for research and development, quote, to be able to figure out how bad guys could use it, for example. He told Senator Ron Wyden, according to a transcript of the hearing that was recently declassified. But dozens of internal FBI documents and court records tell a different story, writes the Times. The documents produced in response to a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit brought by the New York Times against the Bureau show that FBI officials made a push in late 2020 and the first half of 2021 to deploy the hacking tools made by the Israeli spyware firm NSO in its own criminal investigations, that is, in the FBI's own criminal investigations. The officials developed advanced plans to brief the Bureau's leadership and drew up guidelines for federal prosecutors about how the FBI's use of hacking tools would need to be disclosed during criminal proceedings. Like, okay, how did you get this information? It came to us. So the Times writes, it's unclear how the Bureau was contemplating using Pegasus and whether it was considering hacking the phones of American citizens, foreigners, or both. In January, the Times revealed that FBI officials had also tested the NSO tool Phantom, a version of Pegasus capable of hacking phones with U.S. numbers. The FBI eventually decided not to deploy Pegasus in criminal investigations in July of 2021, amid a flurry of stories about how the hacking tool had been abused by governments across the globe. But the documents offer a glimpse at how the U.S. government, over two presidential administrations, wrestled with the promise and peril of a powerful cyber weapon. And despite the FBI decision not to use Pegasus, court documents indicate the Bureau remains interested in potentially using spyware in future investigations. Okay, and of course, the Times reporting brings up the question of Christopher Wray's apparently misleading testimony in front of Congress. Senator Ron Wyden is not happy about that. In a statement from his office, it read, "It is totally unacceptable for the FBI director to provide misleading testimony about the Bureau's acquisition of powerful hacking tools and then wait months to give the full story to Congress and the American people," unquote. So the Times revealed in January that the FBI had purchased Pegasus in 2018 and over the next 2 years tested the spyware at a secret facility in New Jersey. Since the Bureau first purchased the tool, it has paid approximately $5 million to the NSO group. Now, it seems to me that the issue with Pegasus is less about its use than its potential for misuse and abuse. The worry is that once they have it, repressive governments would be unable to resist the temptation of using it to spy on political rivals. We'll see an example of that here in a moment. And, of course, dissidents and other non-criminal actors. And, of course, Pegasus doesn't respect geopolitical boundaries. So anyone who has it can aim it at anyone else anywhere. But in the United States, we have a system for obtaining court orders, for searching, and for making legal within bounds what would otherwise be illegal reconnaissance. So as long as the FBI would only be using Pegasus within our constitutional protections, I think that it would be a useful tool to empower their criminal investigations. And yes, they would be required to tell a judge that this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, and we have probable cause and all the other, requirements of getting a court order to pursue things like a wiretap and so forth. So it seems to me, yes, it is problematical because it can be abused. But if we're going to have systems that are otherwise not prone to be subject to court order search, then maybe this is the way it happens.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
I mean, we allow wiretaps under court order.
Exactly.
Is this is Pegasus somehow too dangerous to be used?
I think the concern is its control. All the reports we have suggests that it is a zero-click tool,
right?
Which it is possible to target at an individual's smartphone, and it goes in against all of the attempts by Apple and Google, iOS and Android, to keep it out. There are enough ways in that it gets in, and then it's able to provide the entity that deployed it with information, the equivalent of someone unlocking their phone and also being eavesdropped on. It's able to, it is a surveillance tool.
I guess the question always is it, first of all, it's going to be very expensive. It's $1 million surveillance tool, right? It's very, very expensive. Multi, because it can't be used too often or it loses its usefulness. Because as soon as the companies, find it, they'll defend against it. So these 0 days are very, very expensive, especially click.
It also might very well be that it is tightly tethered.
That's actually, and this might have been the problem. As I understand it, the NSO group is responsible for the hack. You don't just give the FBI Pegasus and say, have fun with it, guys.
Yes.
It doesn't work that way, right?
Right.
So that's another problem, is that some international company, an Israeli company, would then be privy to what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, that might be a bigger problem.
And other entities may not care, but that may be something that we can't, get over. And in fact, maybe that was the beginning. In testimony like this, there's typically some piece of truth. So probably, the FBI said maybe we need to be empowered with this tool because we're unable to get in any other way. So let's buy a copy and let's learn how it works. Let's have the Pegasus experience so that we can decide if this is something that, we can sell to the greater government.
It's my understanding that what you're buying really is the NSO group
access.
They trigger it on, let's say they want to spy on my phone. The NSO group gets into my phone, triggers it, and then hands control over to the FBI.
Right.
So I'm sure that's illegal in the U.S. because that's an Israeli a company, not even a governmental entity, but a business that the FBI says, okay, we want to hack Leo's phone. Here's his phone. Hack it for us. That can't be legal. So maybe you're right. It literally was research. They just wanted to, well, how, let's understand it a little bit better. But I can't imagine the NSO giving the keys to the kingdom to the FBI either. That's why they do it that way, right?
No. Yes.